So let's get some reaction to that story about the Post Office. Andrew Gwynne is Shadow Health Minister and he's here with me. A very good morning to you. Thanks so much. And I know that there's a Labour health announcement you want to make, which I'll let you come to in a moment. But the story that everybody is talking about is the Post Office scandal and the government's moves yesterday to introduce this emergency legislation which will allow a blanket exoneration of those caught up in it. Does Labour fully back the government and its bill?
So we want to see justice by the sub-postmasters. We're still waiting to hear from the Justice Secretary about the finer details of the bill before Parliament. But we've always said that if it meets the test of justice, getting the compensation out more quickly, but also ensuring that those that were given convictions have their convictions wiped out, then we will support that, obviously. Of course we will.
And huge public backing for these people who've been so wronged and a lot of support to see them exonerated. However, is there any concern that there may be one or two guilty people that are included in this who will also be exonerated and given compensation? Are you concerned about that?
Well, look, this has been such a scandal of a phenomenal scale and a real failure of the system. People's lives have been ruined. I've been taking up the case of my constituent, Della Robinson, who was one of the 555 litigants that successfully got their convictions quashed by the High Court a number of years ago. She was the sub-postmistress in a post office in my constituency. She lost everything. She was wrongfully convicted of false accounting in 2013. She lost her shop, she lost her home, she lost friends, she lost her reputation. And this, isn't a one-off case. As we know, there are a great number of people that have been engulfed by this crisis, and we owe it to them to put this right.
And your constituents, as one of the group that went to the High Court and won, no doubt will be frustrated that they still haven't had any money as a result, even though they won their case. Is the feeling that the £75,000 that's being offered to them is going to go far enough?
Well, probably not. And there are alternatives. You can take your case to be reviewed, but that takes time. I want to see this sped up. I want to see fairness and justice for those that have been wronged by the Post Office. We owe it to them after all these years of misery.
Are you satisfied then with the levels of compensation being offered?
Well, look, I would like the government, obviously, to do the right thing. We've got a package in place. People do have a mechanism now, but obviously these sub-postmasters they've had their lives destroyed, and in some tragic cases, people have lost their lives. And I think that the level of compensation needs to recognise the scale of the hurt and damage that has been done to people across the country.
And this is taxpayers' money, isn't it? Would you like to see others contribute to that compensation if found to have been at fault?
Well, absolutely. And look, there's a bigger picture here. There's an inquiry going on. But if it is found that people have been hiding things, and we suspect they have, that they knew for a number of years, we need to make sure that justice is done for the sub-postmasters in respect of what happens to people who worked at Fujitsu, who worked at the Post Office, who denied that there was an issue but probably knew that there was. So we need to make sure that, as well as adequate compensation and timely compensation, we need to make sure, as well as quashing all of those convictions and wiping the slate clean for those sub-postmasters, that justice is also done in respect of those that had their fingerprints all over this scandal.
And Fujitsu, who were behind the Horizon software that was proved to be faulty, are you comfortable with Fujitsu having so many other government contracts?
Well, personally, I'm not. But the real focus right now has to be sorting this out for the Horizon scandal victims. I think that has to be our main focus right now. But really, it does beg a belief that the government was still giving contracts to a company like Fujitsu when it knew Fujitsu had failed the country on such a monumental scale.
And what about the fact that this is a law which essentially overturns what was decided in court? Does that set a dangerous precedent as far as the power of the judiciary is concerned?
Well, as I say, we will look at the detail of this bill when the Justice Secretary has released it, but these are exceptional circumstances. There was a systemic failure that damaged lives on a huge scale, and actually I think it's right that Parliament looks at an exceptional piece of legislation to deal with exceptional circumstances.
Tell us a little bit about what you're announcing today, what Labour wants to do about children's health. What are your plans?
So children in this country tend to be shorter, fatter and unhealthier than their counterparts across the world in developed countries. And we don't think that's acceptable. So we're putting together a child action plan on children's health being launched today by Keir Starmer, because we want the ambition of the next Labour government to have the healthiest children in the developed world. We want to make sure that children growing up in England today are the healthiest in all generations, and that is going to take a huge shift in how we do things. So it is about tackling the backlog. Do you know that we have over 408,000 children on the paediatric waiting lists in England? A third of them are waiting over 18 months. That's unacceptable.
OK. And one of the parts of this plan is to have a national supervised toothbrushing programme for 3 to 5-year-olds. I mean, you know you're going to be accused of introducing the nanny state here.
Oh, I get that. And look, lots of children know how to brush their teeth. But in some of the most deprived communities, children are, at very young ages are going to accident and emergency with severe tooth decay. And so we have to intervene, and we think that by bringing this measure into the new breakfast clubs that we will have in every primary school in England, that's the right way to start to get some of these public health messages through, to get children's teeth healthier. But it's also about mental health as well. We want to make sure that our children are the happiest. And we've got 200,000 children on mental health waiting lists. It's about tackling all of these things holistically so we have better kids.
OK. Andrew Gwynne, thanks very much indeed for coming in. Thank you.